friends, and welcome to Sound Talking, Sound Thinking, brought to you by Yamaha Synthesizers. My name's Scott Brackett, and I'm a musician, and I make videos about creative process and talk about synthesizers and that kind of stuff. I am also a human who has other qualities, but those are not important for the purposes of this video. Today, as you may have guessed by the intro, I am doing a project that was given to me by Yamaha Synthesizers. They lent me their MODX keyboard, which is a sample-based / FM synthesis hybrid synth engine with a bunch of modulation capabilities and effects processing. There's a lot to talk about with this synthesizer, but today I'm just going to be talking about the AD input. Basically, it's an audio input that you can plug analog signal into and use the synthesizer and its onboard effects to process that audio signal. And you can actually connect the keyboard up USB to a computer and it'll act as an audio interface, but that's a discussion for another day. So before we get into the AD stuff, I actually wanted to talk to you a little bit about what a performance patch looks like. In the MODX, there's no voices, there's no patterns. It's just arpeggios and these things called performances. And a performance can be one part or it can be up to 16 parts. Each part consisting of maybe an instrument or some kind of rhythmic patch. So basically, I think of the MODX as like a configurable sandbox where you can sort of put together a little sonic universe and then start cracking atoms together and, see what happens. To put it in concrete terms, let's say I have a physical hardware rig where I have a RX 15 drum machine. That is not anatomically correct. But let's say I've got a drum machine and I've got a, we'll say, Reface DX. Then I have a mixer and some guitar pedals. I hook those up to the mixer so that I can use the effect sends. There we go. We've got a mixer with a effect send happening, and we do the drum machine audio is going into there. The DX audio is also going into the mixer. And so now we have this sort of setup where we can play these instruments live and tweak settings and generally have a really good time. That's great. But this is the physical world. And if, for example, I want to add another reverb or a different kind of delay, I may have to pay $200 to $500 to get a new reverb. But say I didn't have this little rig. I didn't own these things, but I did own a MODX. What I could do is set up kind of a virtual version of that. Basically, I could have a performance, and in that performance, have one part that is an FM synthesizer. So that can be sort of the stand-in for our DX. And maybe we load in the other part a drum machine with, I think they have RX11 samples on their stock. And then for each of those, we can have 2 effects slots, which are completely customizable. And then we also have a reverb send and a variable send, which can be chorus or a couple other things. And then also 2 slots for master effects. So you've got a lot of effects routing capabilities. And if, for example, you wanted a different reverb, you can pop that in there. You're obviously limited to the ones that come with the keyboard. But if you wanted to add another keyboard or another synth voice, like let's say I wanted to do some, I don't know, a PSS 480, some toy keyboard sounds that I had sampled and put onto the board. So now I've got this whole kind of world to play with. And that's pretty cool. But wait, you might say, what about all of those adorable little synthesizers? I love the physical world. I love the knobs. I want to have my rig. I want to be able to change all the stuff. I want to be able to spend $500 on a reverb pedal. You can do all that. And part of incorporating that into the MODX sort of performance and bridging this gap between the virtual and the physical world is this AD input. And so you can still process your rig through the virtual patch, through the performance, and get some really interesting results. So, without further ado, let's go do some stuff. Okay, so right now I have a patch called Space is the Place set up, and what I've done is gone in and added, by clicking on the part and hitting edit, and going down to modulation control, I set up the envelope follower. The envelope follow AD is the envelope follower that's dedicated for the audio input. And if you click on the display filter, you can see there are 16 and route into different things. And here we can kind of set up different parameters like attack and release. Let me see if I can get... Oh yeah, there's no input. Duh. So as you can see, when I push a button, that input level crosses a certain threshold. And once it does that, the envelope follower output starts doing its thing. In this case, we've set it to 140 millisecond release, which is pretty quick. So let's do 680 milliseconds. And you can see that it's slowly releasing. So right now I have it set to the feedback level of the reverb that's on effects insert A. And so if I play right now, the feedback is pretty much maximum, which is not super musical at the moment. But if I play on the input, stop. So there we kind of have an inverse relationship. Whenever there's audio coming in, the feedback comes up high and starts to ring out. So another thing I wanted to show you is that you can run a microphone into the MODX, get that dog hair out of the way, and sort of do the same kind of thing. Right now I've got a microphone hooked directly into the MODX, and the envelope follower that I showed you when I had the OPZ hooked up on my custom little 3D printed caddy is now listening to my voice. So you can see that every time I speak, that envelope follower output gets triggered. So we can do the same thing on this patch. And whenever I talk, that little shimmery sound kind of goes away and makes a little room for the vocals. And you could obviously do something more wackier. Let's try that. Let's do pitch, which would be totally useless for most singers because every time you sing, it would change pitch on you. So let's see about this. Check 1, 2. So probably not super useful in this case. So that's one idea. What if we wanted to add another parameter to this envelope follower interaction? So right now we've got the release. Let's turn that down to be relatively fast. And I am going to add another control to an effect that I've added to the second slot, which is the vinyl break. It's one of my favorites. One of the things you can do with it is use sort of random modulation to it to create like a tape warble effect. So let's see here. Now, every time I talk, it actually warbles the tape. Now in this case, as a vocalist, that's probably not super useful, but what you could do is hook the microphone up, not pass the audio through to your final sound, but actually use a drummer's kick drum as your modulation source. So rather than using an LFO, you can use the audio in your environment to modulate your patches, which is pretty cool. Check 1, 2. Okay, so here's another patch. And obviously there's a lot more going on in this one. I've got 8 parts, and several of them are rhythmic parts that are triggered and running on arpeggios. And then also, as you can probably see, the super knob has some automation on it right now. And let me go ahead and turn that off, because one of the things I want to show you is that not only is their modulation and envelope following stuff happening, but there's also the effects on the master chain right now. Inside the common edit, I've got a vinyl break effect loaded up, and if I switch it on, you can hear that the pitch drop quite a bit. So as you can see, I've got it on the power off, which is a very slow sort of arc. And let me see what fast is. So fast is a lot faster. Middle would be a little lower, but still pretty fast. And then slow is very slow, but not as slow as vinyl stop, like this, or power off, which is quite slow and takes a long time to really drop all the way. So that's obviously fun, but you can put it into the whole mix. So let me try triggering here. I'm going to turn the motion sequencing back on, and so as it's playing, it's going to stop like that. So pretty fun. That's fun stuff. Let's take a look at what that sort of looks like with another instrument hooked up. Okay, so now I've got a patch that, the same patch I was just playing with the vinyl break and the sort of automation on the super knob, and I've also got the OPZ hooked up running into its audio input. And right now I've got them just set to the same tempo. I don't have any kind of syncing going on, just for the sake of simplicity. But basically if I run the OPZ, it's going to play that kind of a pattern. And if I play on the MODX with my left, well, with any of my, if I play any of the keys, since they're all sort of activated, you can see the little white icon there, it will start all of the arpeggios for the rhythm stuff. So if I push a single button, it starts the rhythm track. And if I play with my left hand, I get bass. If I play with my right hand, I have a lead, and if I hold down, I get a pad that comes in. So, stop on all that. I'm going to turn the motion sequencing back on so that this super knob will start moving. Part of that is it's changing filter settings, and it's also going to be modifying the tape stop and turning that on every 2 measures. Let's see here. No, do I have that? Yeah. Let me hit play on the OPZ. Take the automation off and work the super knob manually, I can trigger the tape stop on my own. So that's just one example of sort of the effects processing you can do. You can also add delays and reverbs. You know, depending on what synthesizer you're working with, it may not have built-in effects. So there's a pretty good array of effects on the MODX that can allow you to do a lot of different stuff, including beat repeat, stutter, vinyl stops, lots of really nice clear reverbs, and some delay options as well. So yeah, it's pretty great. So I'll get more into this in the next video, but I did some experiments with my buddy Ryan where we set up sort of a MODX and prepared piano rig. He has some effects pedals that he's running his piano through, but we're also processing it through the MODX and using the piano to modulate the MODX patch. So as you can see from my collarless shirt, the inclusion of an animal, and the casual nature of my seating arrangement, it's time to wrap up for the day. So I sincerely thank you for watching. I hope some aspect of this installment was entertaining or educational. And thanks again to Yamaha for giving me this project and continuing to give me the opportunity to convert my love of Yamaha synthesizers and making ridiculous videos into more Yamaha synthesizers and equipment to help me make ridiculous videos. So thanks, and I'll see y'all next time. Join us next time for more Sound Talking, Sound Thinking, when we take on the question, is it possible to synchronize the unsyncable?